My family threw me a surprise party, then publicly announced they were cutting me off, so I gave them a farewell gift they'll never forget. I'm a 29-year-old guy named Ryan, and my relationship with my family has been strained for years. We were never outright hostile, but the distance was always there. Too many unresolved conflicts, too many moments where I felt like an outsider in my own home. I had moved on, built my own life, and learned not to expect much from them. So, when I received an invitation to a family gathering, it caught me completely off guard. It wasn't just a casual get-together. The invitation was unexpected, a simple email from my parents inviting me to a family dinner. It felt odd since we hadn't spoken much in years, but part of me wondered if this was an attempt at reconciliation. There was no mention of a specific occasion, no birthday, no anniversary, nothing. Just a date, a time, and a fancy banquet hall as the location. That alone was strange. My family had never done anything like this before. Most of our family gatherings were potlucks in someone's backyard, or a basic dinner at a mid-tier restaurant. This looked like a full-blown event. I almost didn't go, but part of me, maybe the part that still wanted some kind of connection, thought this could be an olive branch. Maybe they were trying to mend things. Maybe this was their way of making an effort. I arrived at the venue and immediately knew something was off. The place was way too extravagant. We're talking a full catering service, professionally arranged decorations, a DJ playing soft background music, and a guest list that went way beyond just immediate family. My aunts, uncles, cousins, and even a few family friends were there. Some people I barely even knew nodded at me in recognition. My parents were unusually warm when they greeted me. My mom smiled too much. My dad clapped me on the back as if we were best buddies. My siblings barely made eye contact. My younger brother was actively avoiding me, while my sister kept glancing at me and then whispering to someone at her table. I found my best friend, who had also been invited. He looked just as confused as I felt. "Do you have any idea what this is about?" he asked. I didn't. Dinner was served, conversations flowed, and yet something was off. The energy in the room was tense, like people were waiting for something to happen. My parents seemed almost rehearsed in their interactions with me. Everything felt artificial. Then my father stood up, holding his wineglass, and tapped a spoon against it. The room fell silent. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice full of forced emotion. "This is a very special evening for our family, an important moment for us all." I glanced at my best friend, who raised an eyebrow. I could feel the shift in the room. Something big was coming. My father continued, "As you all know, family means everything to us, and sometimes difficult decisions must be made for the good of the whole." A pit formed in my stomach. My father sighed and folded his hands. "This isn't working anymore. We've decided, as a family, that it's best to go our separate ways." Silence, a heavy, suffocating silence. Then murmurs, people shifting in their seats, looking at each other. My best friend stiffened beside me. A few guests exchanged awkward glances. My brain struggled to catch up with what I had just heard. My mother took over, her voice soft and measured. "This isn't meant to be cruel. This is something we believe is necessary for the well-being of our family." I could barely register the words. Then my sister pulled out a folded piece of paper and began reading from it. A list of my supposed offenses: selfish, ungrateful, choosing outsiders over family, creating unnecessary conflict, refusing to contribute when asked, prioritizing personal interests over family needs. Each word slammed into me like a punch. Some people actually clapped, not many, but enough for the sound to cut through the noise in my head. I scanned the room. Some looked mortified, others looked smug, and some just seemed relieved it wasn't them in my position. My hands curled into fists. "What is this?" I finally managed to say. My father remained calm, as if he had rehearsed this moment. "We have prepared everything for a clean break," he said, gesturing to my mother, who pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. I didn't take it at first. My brain was still trying to process the humiliation, the sheer audacity of what was happening in front of everyone, publicly. I grabbed the envelope and opened it. Inside was a letter, cold and clinical. "You are no longer welcome at family gatherings. We have removed you from family documents and group communications. We wish you all the best in life." That was it. No real explanation, no apology, just a calculated final severance. I looked at my parents, my siblings, the relatives who had gone along with this. My mother's expression was neutral. My father gave me a nod, like he had just done something noble. My sister wouldn't meet my eyes. I couldn't even find the words. I tossed the envelope onto the table and walked out. My best friend followed, cursing under his breath behind me. The murmurs swelled as some people rushed to talk to each other, whispering about what they had just witnessed. A few even tried to call out to me, but I ignored them. I walked out of that banquet hall, my pulse hammering in my ears, knowing one thing for certain: this wasn't about me. This was about control. And whatever their real reason was, I was going to find out. The banquet hall doors swung shut behind me, cutting off the murmurs and hushed whispers that filled the room. I didn't stop walking. My best friend kept pace beside me, silent but tense, while the night air hit me like a slap to the face. Somewhere behind us I could hear people coming out, some leaving, some just stepping outside to watch. I ignored them. A distant voice called my name, but I didn't turn back. The envelope my parents had handed me was clenched in my fist. I hadn't even realized I was still holding it until I reached my car and slammed it against the hood. It made a loud slap against the metal before sliding onto the ground. My friend picked it up, looked at it for a second, then placed it back on the car. More people started filtering out of the building. Some avoided looking at me. Others were whispering to each other, throwing glances in my direction. A cousin hesitated near the entrance, phone in hand, before disappearing back inside. My parents didn't come out. Neither did my siblings. I got in my car and drove away. I didn't check my phone until later that night. When I did, my notifications were flooded. A cousin had recorded the whole thing. The video was already making rounds on social media. I opened the link and saw a shaky, dimly lit recording from the far side of the room. My father's voice echoed through the speakers. "We have come to a decision as a family." The entire speech was there, from my sister reading off that ridiculous list to the awkward claps that followed. The video ended just as I stormed out. The comments were already rolling in, some from people I knew, extended family, old friends, reacting with shock, others from strangers. What kind of cult is this? Imagine throwing a whole party just to cut someone off. Insane. There's no way this is real. It feels staged. My phone buzzed again. A different cousin had messaged me, "Dude, I had no idea this was going to happen. This was messed up." More messages followed, some from distant relatives, some from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Most were variations of the same thing. I had no idea. "Are you okay?" What was that? But one message stood out. From my mom. I hesitated before opening it. The text was short: "We did this for your own good. The family can finally heal now." I stared at the screen for a long time before putting my phone down. Over the next few weeks, the video gained traction. It started in family circles, then spread when someone anonymously posted about it online. It wasn't viral overnight, but slowly, people started talking. The title, "Imagine getting invited to a party just to be disowned." I wasn't tagged, but I didn't have to be. People were already piecing things together. Then, at work, my worst fear was confirmed. One of my coworkers leaned over and asked, "Hey, isn't this you?" He tilted his phone to show me the video. Another coworker had already pulled it up. Someone across the office laughed awkwardly. A few of them started whispering. I didn't stay long that day. I finally opened the envelope that night. Inside was an official-looking document. It confirmed what I had already guessed. They had removed me from their will, explicitly uninvited me from future holidays, and stated that I was no longer considered a member of the family. It wasn't just words, it was legal, formal. At the bottom, both my parents had signed their names. I checked my messages again. My brother and sister still hadn't responded. I sent them one last text. "Is this really how you want this to go?" Nothing. The family was now split. Some relatives were on my side, messaging me privately to say they were disgusted by what happened. Others doubled down, saying I had brought this on myself. One uncle reached out with something unexpected. He told me he had a spare room if I ever wanted to fully cut ties. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. It was the first time in days that something felt real. Then came the final blow. My brother was getting married soon. I hadn't even known he was engaged. A mutual cousin sent me a screenshot of the wedding invite list. My name wasn't on it. That night, I stared at my phone for a long time. I started typing a message, to my parents, to my siblings, to everyone. I wanted to say something, to fight back, to ask them what they were thinking, if they even cared. Then, before I could hit send, I deleted it. They had already made up their minds. The silence from my family should have been my answer. But I needed to know why. Why now? Why go through the effort of staging an entire event just to cut me off publicly? There had to be more to it. The first clue came from an unexpected message. A second cousin, someone I had only interacted with at family gatherings, sent me a cryptic text. "You should look into what changed before the party. There's more to this than they're letting on." I asked what they meant, but they didn't respond. The moment I got home, I started digging. I remembered that my parents had once told me about the family estate. Checking the public property records confirmed my suspicions. My name had been removed just days before the dinner. It wasn't a coincidence. When I was younger, they had mentioned that one of the family properties, an old vacation house, would be passed down to me. I hadn't thought about it in years, but I checked the public property records just in case. My name was nowhere on it. Instead, the house had been quietly transferred to my younger brother a week before the party. That wasn't a coincidence. I kept looking. The second I saw the legal document date, I knew I needed professional help. I reached out to a lawyer who had handled my family's estate planning years ago. He wasn't our family lawyer anymore, but I figured it was worth a shot. He called me back the next day. He confirmed what I already suspected. My parents had changed their estate plan just before the party. Not only was I removed, but my younger brother and sister had been given larger shares than originally planned. My parents had also added a clause ensuring they would be financially taken care of for the rest of their lives, something that would have required me to support them before the change was made. In other words, they expected me to pay for their retirement, and when I didn't, they made sure I was out of the picture. It all started making sense. My parents had been laying the groundwork for months. My sister, the one who read off that ridiculous list at the party, had been pushing for this. The lawyer even mentioned that she had been the one pushing the hardest to change things. She told my parents I was too independent and wasn't contributing to the family. She painted me as the problem, making sure that when they cut me off, it would look justified. They needed me gone so no one would question the will changes. Then the second video surfaced. Someone else at the party had recorded a different angle. This time it showed my father and younger brother laughing just minutes before the announcement. They weren't nervous, they weren't conflicted, they were excited. The person who uploaded it didn't even tag me, but people recognized them immediately. The comments flooded in. They planned this like a damn theater production. Bro, they really threw a disarmament party. The fact that they were laughing before the announcement is insane. More messages rolled in, this time from people I hadn't spoken to in years, old acquaintances, former family friends. I always thought your dad was controlling, but this is a new level. Dude, your sister used to tell people you wouldn't fall in line with the family. I thought she was joking. Even one of my father's longtime friends reached out. I didn't know they were going to do that to you. If I had known, I wouldn't have gone. At this point, I had enough. I sent my father a text. No small talk, no pretense, just one question. Was this all about money? His response came fast. It's about what's best for the family. That was all I needed to see. By then, the internet had caught on. People had started digging into my family's history of manipulation. Old stories resurfaced. Times when my father had financially cut off other relatives. When my sister had tried to control people through guilt. A deep dive thread popped up on Reddit, piecing everything together. His family cut him off right after changing their will. The brother got the property that was meant for OP. The sister pushed for this for months. The parents were laughing before the announcement. This wasn't a sudden decision. This was a long con. Then the final warning came in. The lawyer I had spoken to messaged me again. I'm going to be honest with you. If your parents are willing to cut you off this publicly, they might also try to make sure you can't contest the will in the future. They might legally block you from making any claims. My younger brother and sister must have gotten nervous because within an hour, they removed me from social media. No explanation, just gone. It was damage control. They didn't want to be associated with me anymore because they knew things were about to get worse. That night, for the first time, the rage actually set in. I had let a lot of things slide in my life. I had ignored years of being treated like I wasn't part of the family. But this was deliberate. They had planned this for months. They wanted me gone because I refused to be their financial backup plan. I started considering my options, exposing them publicly, taking legal action, both. I had everything I needed, the evidence, the messages, the videos, the legal changes. I just had to decide if I wanted to use them. I had the receipts, the legal documents, the messages, the videos. Every piece of evidence showed exactly how my family had planned to cut me off, rewrite the will, and make me look like the villain. For days I debated what to do with it. I could stay quiet and let them get away with it, or I could tell my side of the story. I chose to tell my side. I wrote everything out in a Reddit post, laying out the timeline, the invitation, the staged humiliation, the will changes, the second video of my dad and brother laughing, the messages from my sister admitting that I was cut off because I was too independent. I attached screenshots, redacting names for privacy but leaving enough details to make it clear I wasn't lying. I hit post. I went to sleep thinking maybe a few hundred people would read it. I woke up to viral chaos. My post had exploded overnight. Thousands of upvotes, hundreds of awards, comments flying in faster than I could read them. This is some next-level villain origin story material. They literally threw a party to disown you. I'm still stuck on that. Your family is the corporate version of, if you're not useful, you don't exist. People weren't just reacting, they were digging. Reddit users started piecing together timelines, cross-referencing legal details, and calling out the sheer absurdity of what happened. Some even made TikToks breaking down the situation. Then my siblings saw it. First, my brother blocked me on everything. He was already avoiding me, but this made it official. My sister followed right after, but not before posting something vague on Facebook. Some people have no shame airing private family matters online. Real family knows the truth. She deleted it after an hour when the comments section tore her apart. Then I got another message. An aunt who had stayed silent until now sent me a long text. She confirmed that the inheritance changes had been planned for months. She had overheard conversations where my sister was actively convincing my parents that I didn't deserve anything since I wasn't part of the family anymore. She didn't agree with what happened, but she also didn't want to get involved. Typical. Meanwhile, my parents went into full damage control. First, my dad tried calling. When I didn't pick up, he left a voicemail. The tone was controlled, almost rehearsed. He never denied what I posted. Just said I was misunderstanding things and that I should have talked to him privately. Minutes later, an email came in. Long paragraphs about how I was being irrational and disrespectful to my family. How he never wanted this, but that I was forcing his hand by making everything public. I didn't respond. Then more secrets started coming out. A different relative reached out and casually mentioned, "Oh, I thought you already knew. Your childhood home was sold months ago." I didn't. I had assumed my parents still owned the house I grew up in, but they had sold it without telling me. Another financial move they didn't want me to question. At this point, it was clear they had been planning for a long time to wipe me off the map. I later found out that my sister had been discussing my removal with other relatives for weeks. One cousin forwarded me a message where she justified it, saying, "It's not personal, but it was the only way to keep things fair." It read, "I don't feel bad. He wouldn't let us control him, and this was the only way to handle it." I screenshotted it immediately. My sister went into panic mode. She started calling people, trying to spin a new narrative, but the damage was already done. The internet did what the internet does. TikTok and Twitter picked up the story. People were making reaction videos, analyzing the situation, debating whether my family was a cult or just money hungry. Even people who didn't believe the full story couldn't ignore the videos, the clips from the party, the awkward clapping, the second footage of my father laughing. It was too real to be faked. Then the workplace fallout started. Someone at my job brought it up in the break room. The conversation was loud enough that I couldn't ignore it. "Oh my God, I saw that story on Reddit. Wait, wasn't it?" Someone else hushed them, but it was too late. For the next week, I could feel the side glances, the awkward pauses when I walked in. Not judgmental, just curious. Strangely, most people supported me. A coworker even admitted they had a family just like mine. Still, having my personal life become public knowledge at work was weird. Then another message came in. An old neighbor I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. They told me that my father had done this before. Years ago, another family member had been financially cut off after questioning my dad's decisions. They had been erased the same way I had, completely removed from the family. History was repeating itself. At this point, I knew I had one option left. I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer. I didn't know if I could challenge the will, but I needed to know what my rights were. Then my father finally snapped. A final text, short and cold. "You ruined this family's reputation. I hope you regret this." It was followed minutes later by a text from my mother, a long message, guilt-tripping, telling me how she never wanted this and how I was tearing the family apart. Neither of them ever denied the money moves. Neither of them apologized. They just wanted me to shut up. I didn't reply. For the first time, I knew I didn't owe them anything, and now I was ready to fight back. I sat across from the lawyer going over every detail. Challenging a will wasn't easy, he explained, but there were loopholes. If I could prove that the changes had been made under fraudulent circumstances, like coercion or undue influence, there was a case. The fact that my parents rewrote everything a week before cutting me off publicly, that was suspicious. Then a bombshell dropped. A cousin, one of the few family members who still spoke to me, sent a message. "Your brother and sister knew about the will changes for months. Your dad promised them extra money if they agreed not to fight him on it. My siblings weren't just bystanders in this. They had actively agreed to let me get erased in exchange for a bigger cut." Meanwhile, social media was still eating my family alive. My sister, clearly frustrated, made a vague post about entitled people who think they deserve handouts. It backfired instantly. People recognized her from the viral posts. The comments called her out. "Oh, you mean like how you helped steal your brother's inheritance? You literally threw a party to cut someone off. Sit this one out. Didn't your text messages already expose you?" LOL. She deleted the post within an hour. Then another piece of evidence landed in my lap. A different cousin messaged me with a screenshot from my father, one he had sent before the will was changed. It was a direct admission that they were rewriting everything, not because of anything I did, but out of spite. If he won't support this family, then he doesn't deserve to be part of it. That was it. Proof that this wasn't about my behavior. It was about control. The next day, things escalated in a way I didn't expect. My father called my workplace. He tried to spin a new narrative, told them that I was mentally unstable, that I had a history of erratic behavior, and that they should be concerned about my actions. Luckily, my boss wasn't an idiot. He pulled me aside, told me exactly what had been said, and reassured me that my job was safe. But now this was personal. My parents weren't just trying to cut me off, they were trying to ruin my life. While that was happening, the extended family was imploding. A huge fight broke out in the family group chat. Some relatives were furious at my parents for what they had done, while others sided with them. The ones against them were starting to realize the full picture. Wait, so you guys changed the will and then cut him off publicly to cover your tracks? How do you disown your own kid and still try to control his life? That's insane. I had no idea it was this bad. Others doubled down. He embarrassed the family. He got what he deserved. He should have been grateful. Now look at him crying online for attention. The chat devolved into chaos, and by the end of it, half of the family left the group entirely. Then a journalist reached out. The story had spread so much online that a local news site was interested. They wanted to do a piece on toxic family dynamics and financial manipulation. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go that far yet, but the fact that it was big enough for media attention meant my parents were feeling the pressure. And sure enough, they tried to fix it the only way they knew how: money. I got a message from my father. "We're willing to discuss a small settlement if you agree to take everything down and stop talking about this." A bribe. My lawyer's response? That means they know they're on shaky legal ground. They wouldn't offer anything if they weren't worried. Then the ultimatum came. A final message from my father. "If you remove all posts and publicly apologize to the family, we will consider giving you something." They didn't want to make things right. They wanted me to admit fault publicly so they could regain control of the narrative. I didn't even hesitate. I leaked the message online. The backlash was instant. Even relatives who had been neutral started backing away from my parents. Wait, so they're only offering money if you apologize? This was never about fairness. They really just want to shut you up. This is disgusting. The fact that they're still trying to manipulate you after all this. They deserve to lose everything. At this point, even the people who had defended them were quiet. Then my sister snapped. She sent one last message, a rant filled with insults, calling me pathetic for airing dirty laundry and saying she hoped I never saw a cent of the family money. That message? I saved it, screenshotted, documented. She had just proved she didn't want fairness, she wanted me gone. I had seen enough. I called my lawyer and told him to move forward. I wasn't just going to challenge the will, I was going to make sure they never did this to anyone else again. The legal wheels were in motion. My lawyer sent an official request for all documents related to the will changes. My parents now had to respond. No more ignoring, no more controlling the narrative. Then the first cracks appeared. A week after my lawyer sent the request, my father started panicking. Someone in the family let it slip that he was furious about the cost of the legal process. He had assumed that cutting me off would be clean and simple. He never thought I would fight back, and he definitely never expected me to lawyer up. Turns out, even with the will rewritten, they still had to prove in court that everything was done fairly. And with the amount of evidence I had, that was going to be a problem for them. At first, my brother stood by my parents, but as the legal battle dragged on and pressure mounted, his confidence wavered. He reached out to me once, indirectly, asking if we could fix this before it got worse. But I ignored him. He had already made his choice. A message popped up from an unknown number. It was him. He wasn't apologizing, he wasn't admitting guilt, but he was clearly scared. He didn't want to be dragged into a lawsuit and wanted to know if there was a way to settle things quietly. I ignored it. If he was nervous now, it meant things were finally getting real. Not long after, my mother made her move. A handwritten letter arrived at my door. No text, no email, just old-fashioned emotional manipulation in an envelope. She wrote about how she missed me, how she never wanted things to turn out this way, how she just wanted peace in the family. It was carefully worded. She never denied what they did, she never took responsibility. She just wanted me to drop everything. I didn't respond. If she really wanted peace, she would have never let things escalate this far. By this point, the family was officially at war. My parents started cutting off any relatives who supported me. They removed people from group chats, refused to answer calls, and made it clear that if you weren't on their side, you weren't part of the family. Some aunts and uncles distanced themselves from the drama, not wanting to pick a side. Others started speaking up. Then something I never expected happened. My father's own brother, my uncle, reached out. He had been quiet throughout this whole mess, never getting involved, but now he wanted to help. He had seen this play out before. My father had done something similar years ago to another relative, and my uncle was done staying silent. He told me he was willing to testify. That changed everything. Now it wasn't just my word against my parents. It was their own sibling calling them out. Then the next bombshell dropped. Through some financial digging, my lawyer found out that my father had already spent part of the inheritance. He had assumed that I wouldn't fight back, so he got comfortable. That meant if I won the case, they were going to have a very big financial hole to fill. It also meant that my brother and sister might not even get the money they were promised. That's when I got the next message from my brother. He was rethinking everything. Around the same time, the journalist covering the story confirmed they were moving forward with the article. The piece wasn't just about my family, it was about inheritance battles, financial manipulation, and controlling family dynamics. But my parents knew exactly who the inspiration was. That's when my father snapped. Another text message came in. No more pretending, no more manipulation, just pure anger. You are dead to me. Enjoy being alone forever. It was the final, official cutoff. Then he made a mistake. Because after sending that text, my father's rage got the best of him. He went into the family group chat and ranted about how I was ruining everything. My sister, who had been fighting so hard to control the story, was mortified. She left the group chat immediately. I took a screenshot of my father's message, then I posted it online. No added commentary, no extra words, just his own words exposing exactly who he was. This time, even the people who had been defending my family went quiet. Then the good news came. My lawyer reviewed everything, the will changes, the timing, the manipulation, and now the uncle willing to testify. The case was even stronger than we thought. The will changes were clearly not made in good faith. My father had proven his own bad intentions, and now there was a real chance they wouldn't be able to keep everything. My brother, who had ignored me for months, who had agreed to cut me out, sent another message. This time, he wasn't looking for a quiet settlement. He was rethinking his involvement completely. I didn't know it would go this far. He was realizing that siding with my parents might have been a mistake. I still didn't reply. He made his choice. With the legal battle getting serious, my parents' reputations started taking hits. People who used to be close to them stopped talking to them. Family friends distanced themselves. They weren't just losing money now. They were losing social support. They had spent their lives building an image. Now that image was crumbling. I didn't let myself get distracted. Instead of getting caught up in their meltdowns and manipulation, I stayed focused. The case was moving forward, and I was ready to see this through to the end. The case was officially filed. My lawyer submitted the paperwork, forcing my parents to provide full documentation of all financial changes, including the altered will, account transfers, and property movements. They had no choice now, they had to answer. Then the real damage started. A week after filing, my lawyer dug into the financial records. What he found was worse than we expected. There were discrepancies. Large amounts of money had been withdrawn before the will was changed, more than what my parents should have had access to. The timeline was damning. My father had moved huge sums right before he officially disowned me. This wasn't just about cutting me off. He'd been siphoning money before making it official. If the court found fraud, my father could be held legally accountable. The moment my father received notice that the financial records would be reviewed, he started scrambling. Suddenly, family members started getting calls. My parents were trying to do damage control, making excuses, spinning the situation to make it look like I was the problem. But the money trail didn't lie. They had spent years making sure everything looked like it was done fairly, but now their entire plan was falling apart. I had assumed my brother was regretting his involvement. He had reached out before, nervous about being dragged into the case. Then he flipped. He fully sided with my parents, going as far as calling me a money-hungry traitor in a family chat. He made it public, calling me out for tearing the family apart over money. But he forgot one thing. I didn't start this. They threw a party to cut me off. They changed the will in secret, and now they were trying to act like I was the bad guy. His rant backfired. People in the chat started pushing back. So you're okay with the fact that Dad moved money before the will was even changed? If OP was so selfish, why did they have to bribe you to stay quiet? This doesn't make OP look bad. It makes you look guilty. He left the group chat after that. Not long after, I got a voicemail, 10 minutes long. It was my mother, sobbing. She was hysterical, talking about how I had ruined the family, how she couldn't believe I would do this, how I was breaking her heart. But nowhere in that voicemail did she deny what they did. Nowhere did she apologize. It was just another attempt at guilt tripping. I deleted it. While my brother was imploding publicly, my sister got exposed privately. Someone who used to be her friend messaged me with something interesting. She had been spending inheritance money before the will was even finalized, before I was officially cut off. She had been making large purchases. She had been so sure that I wouldn't fight back that she had already started spending her extra cut. Screenshots of messages leaked where she bragged about getting more money because Ryan was finally gone. Once those messages spread, people started turning on her. Even the relatives who were neutral started realizing just how calculated this all was. She stopped posting online completely. Then my father tried one last desperate move. I got a message. We can offer a payout if you agree to drop the case immediately. They had spent months acting like I was the problem, like I was selfish, and now they were offering me money just to shut up. I forwarded it to my lawyer. His response, "This just strengthens your case. They know they're losing." My father tried to fight back. He filed a counter motion to dismiss my case, claiming it was baseless and that the will changes were fair. The judge rejected it immediately. They had no solid evidence. The legal battle took months. My lawyer filed paperwork, and my parents pushed back with their own legal team, trying to delay the process. But eventually they had to answer. Then another relative stepped forward. This wasn't just my uncle. This was someone who had also been cut out of the will. They had assumed they had no power to fight back, but now that I was challenging it, they were willing to testify. This wasn't just about me anymore. My parents had been manipulating people for years. Now they were losing control. My father had spent years building a reputation, business connections, social circles. He had always made sure people saw him as a respected man. But now, his business connections were distancing themselves. Some canceled deals. He was losing money fast. He had spent years building his image, but now everyone was seeing him for what he really was, and he couldn't handle it. The extended family was done. Some relatives had tried to stay neutral, but now they couldn't ignore the evidence. A few cut off my parents completely. Others outright said they wanted nothing to do with them. The family name was tarnished, all because they got greedy. Then another message from my brother. This time, he was backtracking hard. I didn't know it would go this far. Maybe we can settle privately. He had spent months mocking me, publicly defending my parents, and now he wanted out. I ignored it. He made his choice. Then the final blow to my sister. A cousin leaked messages proving that she had known about the will changes from the start. She had been actively involved. She had told my parents that I was too independent and wasn't contributing. She was the one pushing them to cut me out, and now everyone knew. My lawyer sat me down and gave me a choice. I could continue with full litigation, take them to court and expose everything, or I could negotiate a private settlement. Either way, my parents were going to lose. Then my father made one last attempt to take control. A final message, settle now, or you're disowned forever. I laughed when I read it. They had already cut me out. They had already humiliated me. They had already treated me like I was nothing. Now they were pretending like I had something to lose. The case was reaching its final stretch. My father was cornered, my mother was begging, my sister was hiding, my brother was regretting, and me? I was ready to finish this. The case had been dragging on for months, but now it was finally time. The final hearing, the last showdown, the moment everything came to light. The courtroom was silent as my lawyer presented the full scope of the fraud, the hidden bank account, the misuse of funds before the will was even changed, the manipulation tactics used to cut me out. The evidence was undeniable. My father sat there, face like stone. My brother looked shaken. My mother stared at the table. My sister? Nowhere to be seen. Then the judge made the final ruling. My father had acted dishonestly. The judge ordered him to return a portion of the inheritance money to me. I had won. The moment the ruling was made, my brother broke. Tears, shaking hands, full breakdown. He realized exactly what he had done. He had chosen the wrong side. He had publicly defended our parents, called me a traitor, sided against me, and now he had lost everything, his money, his reputation, his relationship with me. He didn't even try to talk to me after the hearing. He just sat there, staring ahead, like his entire world had just collapsed. The moment the ruling went public, my sister vanished from social media. No more cryptic posts, no more passive-aggressive rants about loyalty. She knew everyone had seen the leaked messages. She had been exposed for pushing my parents to cut me out, for spending money before the will was finalized, for lying about her involvement. Now she was too embarrassed to show her face. After the ruling, my father gave me one last look, cold, angry, full of hatred. Then he spoke. He told me I was dead to him, told me to never contact them again, like I hadn't already cut them off months ago, like he still thought he had control. Then another bombshell dropped, a tax fraud investigation. Turns out my father's financial records didn't just expose what he did to me. There were other discrepancies, other shady transactions. Now the IRS was taking a closer look. The same man who tried to erase me might lose everything because he got greedy. The extended family was still split down the middle. Some cut my parents off completely. They saw the proof, saw the fraud, and wanted nothing to do with them. Others made excuses. They were just looking out for the family. It's still wrong to take them to court. You should have handled it privately. Those people, I cut them off too. If they were willing to defend this level of manipulation, they weren't worth keeping in my life. Freedom, finally. For the first time in months, I felt free. No more legal battles, no more toxic family drama, no more people trying to control me. I had fought back, and I had won. A month later, I heard through the grapevine that my father was forced to sell property to cover legal fees. The same inheritance money he stole? Gone. The same security he thought he had? Vanished. Everything he did to secure his future had just destroyed it. Then the final email came in, from my mother. A long, desperate message, begging me to come back to the family, talking about how she missed me, how she wanted to fix things, how none of this was her fault. I didn't even read the whole thing. I deleted it. Not long after, my brother reached out. This time, it wasn't anger, it was regret. He finally realized what he had lost. He wanted to make things right. But after everything he did, there was no going back. I ignored the message. Some things can't be fixed. I took my share of the money and did something for myself. I moved to a new city, a new apartment, a new life. No more family guilt, no more looking over my shoulder, no more living in their shadow. This was my fresh start.